Milan is a dream city for many. It's not a surprise because it's one of the most important European fashion and design capitals, and it's also a city of elegant and sophisticated lifestyle. Endless happy hours with APPAREL spritz, dinners in chic restaurants, and shopping in the luxury boutiques. But is the real life in Milan is like this? Does it really worth it to move to this so much desired Italian city? Today we will talk with you about the reality of life in Milan that influencers usually don't show to you. Ciao amici, hi friends, it's Natalia and welcome to my channel. I've moved to Milan around 7 years ago because I studied here. I did my master's in the famous fashion school Istituto Marangoni. I did fashion luxury brand management masters because I've worked in fashion industry all my life, also in Russia, and then I continued to work here in Milan. And my choice of this city was very simple because Milan is one of the most important cities for fashion and design. And this was the industry that I was working for many years. And I knew that if I want to grow in this industry, I should move to a city like Milan. Because Milan has, of course, many offices of the famous Italian brands, and not only Italian brands. So if you want to work in the fashion industry, this city is the right one to make career in fashion. I must say that my way to move to Milan was like a privileged way. First because I was already speaking Italian, because I did my bachelor's degree in Russia in Italian philology, so I was already prepared at least with the language. And before moving to Milan, I also already had an experience of 6 years of working in fashion industry in Russia. And I also understand that my position was a privileged one because I got the help of my family when I moved here, and also because I knew that I was going to study here. So even not knowing anyone in Milan when I was moving here, I was sure that I will find some connections in my fashion school. And I know that many of my followers look at my lifestyle in Milan and maybe also dream of moving to this city from different places. And I wanted to talk about some things that influencers usually don't talk about, because the real life in Milan is very different from what people usually imagine. And believe me, in many ways it's not glamorous at all. The beautiful thing of Milan is that this city always reminds you why you should work hard, offering you all the most sophisticated rewards that you can imagine in the world. But at the same time, if for some reason you don't manage to make good money in this city, it will make you feel even more poor and more miserable. And this is why. The biggest problem of Milan is the rent problem, because the cost of the rent was already high many years ago when I moved here, and lately with all the inflation happening, it also grew even more. The problem is that Milan is attractive for many people, like many people from all around the Italy, especially from south, are going to Milan for the reason that this city can offer you work. Because in other cities of Italy, even the big ones, the situation with the occupation is not so good as in Milan. So maybe even not wanting to live exactly in Milan, people come here from different cities and towns of Italy just because they don't have many choices. Besides that, there are many international companies that have offices in Milan, and of course they also need to rent some apartments for their employees. And we are not talking about the tourists that come to Milan and maybe rent some Airbnbs. All these factors make really skyrocket the prices for the apartments, for the rent of the apartments here in Milan. So let's talk about it. And especially you can understand that the rent here, especially in some decent place, is really expensive when you look at the ratio between the cost of the rent and the average salaries. First, it's really not so easy to find a good apartment in a nice area of the city, in quite central area of the city, not paying some insane amount of money. For example, when I moved to Milan and I was studying and I was renting an apartment here, I knew that I wanted to live in a nice area, in quite central area. In fact, in the center of the city, because my school was in the center of the city, and I was alone, so I wanted to feel safe, so I didn't want to go to some areas that maybe have some strange people. And I knew that I didn't want to use the public transport a lot. So I was looking for an apartment to live not so far from my school. So I wanted to be able to walk by foot to my school and not use the public transport. First, I must say that finding a decent apartment was like a crazy journey. It took me around 2 months to finally find the apartment that I was ready to rent for the long term, and this apartment was in a really nice area. It was right for all my requests because it was also not so far from my school, but I can't tell that it was perfect. I mean, the apartment itself was quite old, but at least it was painted and the furniture was like from IKEA. It wasn't so bad, but for example, the windows were old. The kitchen was almost non-existing, it was just tiny, and in general this apartment was not so right for like long-term living for maybe, I don't know, even for 2 people. For 1 person it was fine, and especially for my goals. I mean, I was just a student and I was mostly going out and I didn't spend so much time at home and I wasn't cooking a lot. So in the end, for this not so perfect apartment that was around 60-70 square meters, I was paying 1,100 euros per month, and not all the bills were included in this price. So with all the bills, the price was arriving maybe to 1,200 or even 1,300 euros. And maybe if you live in some country with high prices, from your point of view, you may think that this price is not so bad in your country, maybe it's worse. But let's talk about average salary in Italy. The average salary in Italy, let's say especially in Milan, because in other areas it can be even less, especially in the south, but in Milan, the average salary is about 1,500 euros. It's an average salary for young people. I mean, young people also in their 30s, not like young people that are 20 years old or something like this. And also to arrive to this amount, maybe you need to work some years. Because usually people start to earn from the first years, maybe even less, like 1,200 or something like this. So you can understand that in the end, the rent of my apartment, that was like really not so fantastic. It was just normal place where you can live for some time. It was exactly the average salary for a young person. So if you do a normal job and you need to pay your rent, in the end, if you want to live in a decent area, your rent is your entire salary. For this reason, you need to understand that living in Milan alone, like a young person, it's a really privileged position. And usually it never happens. I mean, I'm not talking about some maybe kids of super rich parents and so on. I'm talking about people of a normal level, also let's say middle class. because in the end the reality is that here young people usually can't afford to live alone. They are forced to live with other people and to share the apartment. I've seen many times that Italians, for example, share an apartment with other 5 people. Maybe they rent a big apartment with several rooms in quite a good area, maybe central area, but they share it with many other people. So you can understand that we can talk about privacy and like complete independence here. Maybe for Italians it's quite fine because as I already told in my previous video, people here really love to be in the company. They very often suffer if they need to spend a lot of time alone. But for example, for me, it's not an option. I've never shared apartment with other people that are not my family members, and I'm just not used to it. I really need my private space, and I can't imagine living with some people that are not close people for me. But the reality for most of the young people living here in Milan is like this. Of course, you can try to save money on the rents and find something outside the city, but in the end, if you do like this, you risk to get to some area that maybe is not so safe with many strange people, and also you lose all the sense of living in Milan, because you will need to spend a lot of time going to work or to your university, and you will waste like couple of hours of your precious time every day to get there and come back. And also you will not have time in the end to enjoy the city. You won't go for many walks in the center, you won't enjoy all the beauty of the architecture here, I don't know, bars, restaurants and so on, because you need to lose your time and you also need to save money. One of the reasons why most of the people come to Milan is to find their dream job. I've already told that many people, including myself, come to Milan because they dream to work in the fashion industry. Maybe they dream to work for some famous luxury brand, and they have many hopes for it. But let's talk about the reality of this dream. And the reality is that no matter the company, because I have many friends that work in many different famous brands here in Milan, but in the end, every kind of work in fashion industry is just a slavery. It's really hard to find another industry where they exploit so much people, and where you are so underpaid for all the extra hours that you need to work. It's not only that you are underpaid for all your efforts, because they always think that there always will be another person that dreams to get this job, but also you can forget about your private life, because all the hours that you need to work for fashion brands and all the way that they usually structure the work won't allow you to do anything besides this job. So if you will talk about any person in Milan working for some fashion brand, even the most famous fashion brands, you will always hear the same exact story. And believe me, they will tell you that it's not a glamorous job at all. So for many people working in Milan, not only in the fashion industry, but also in some other sectors, work-life balance just doesn't exist. Another problem of the city is the level of pollution. Like most of the time, the air in Milan is really dirty and heavy. When I just moved here, I was very surprised that it was hard to breathe. I mean, I was just feeling some heaviness on my chest when I was walking and breathing here the first month, I think. And I've never had any problems with lungs. And before I was living in St. Petersburg, it's like a big city of 5 million people with many cars and so on. It's not the most clean city. Also their air maybe is not so clean, but maybe for the reason of the wind and that there some water is near, so it creates even more wind, and the air is a bit more mixed. It wasn't feeling so dirty as it was feeling in Milan. Like really, I had a hard time breathing, but I didn't understand why, because I didn't know that this problem of pollution is so strong here. In fact, it's not a problem only of Milan being a big city, but of all the Pianura Padana, so where Milan is situated, because it has such a landscape like surrounded by mountains, that the air is just not moving here. That's why all the pollution is just concentrated in this area. And it's not only the problem of the cars, the traffic, but also of the fact that Pianura Padana in general, this area of Lombardia, it's a very industrial area. It's one of the most important industrial areas of Italy, in general, the north of Italy. And for this reason, the pollution comes also from the factories. So after the rain, or maybe when there is a bit of wind, the air in Milan is quite fine, but sometimes there comes these months when the air is just stuck and it becomes so heavy and so dirty that you really notice it every time that you're going for a walk. And I don't think that such walks are very good for your health, but there's nothing to do with this here. Lately, I mean, mostly after the pandemic, at least I saw such drastic changes after the pandemic. Milan also became quite a dangerous city. I mean, if you go out, if you go out quite late, or maybe in some areas that are considered not so safe, you really risk to meet some aggression, or maybe to be followed if you're a woman, or maybe to be raped even. So really, lately Milan became quite dangerous. And in some sense, it seems like the situation is out of control, because police is not doing much of their job. Like, there are many cases when people had problems, that they met aggression, and police didn't do anything, even when they went to declare this. Partially, this problem is from the uncontrolled immigration. That is also a big problem in Italy now, especially in Milan, because many people come to Milan and they're not integrated in the society. The state is not doing much to work with these people, to make them integrate in the society in the right way. So then you see all kinds of problems that become even worse, because police, I don't know for which reason, is quite passive. I must say that Milan is the only international city in Italy, and to be honest, it's the only modern and growing city in this country, because other cities are really old school. Like, even Milan, compared to many other cities, to many other big cities in the world, is quite old school city. But if you compare it with other cities of Italy, you see that there is much growth. It is a more open-minded city, and people can find their place more easily here, even if they are coming from different countries and cities. But at the same time, Milan is quite a snob city. I mean that it's really hard to connect with local people, if it's some people that were born in Milan, or at least were born and raised in the north of Italy, because they are quite distant from all other people. Like, some people think that Italians have some bad ideas about immigrants, from people from other countries, even if they're having a normal life. I mean, they're integrated in the society. But the point is that Italians sometimes are quite snob, not about immigrants, but also about Italians from different parts of Italy. I see much more confrontation between the north of Italy and south of Italy. I mean, people of the north of Italy very often speak badly about people of the south of Italy, and also quite often make discrimination on the workplaces. And I see it even more than they do it with like people from other countries. Another thing that I've noticed is that Milan is a city of lonely people. It's not only my idea, but also the statistics tell that Milan is the city of Italy where you can find the most amount of single people. And one of the reasons for this, for my opinion, is that people have really strange ideas about relationships here. When I've just moved here, I noticed that many people here consider relationships, like, I mean, in general, connections with other people, like a video game. Like they can treat you in a way that it seems that they are playing a video game and not interacting with a real human, with the real emotions that they can hurt. So you should be prepared that this city is quite tough also on the emotional level, not only because of the problems of the rents, salaries, and so on. So these are some problems that I've noticed during my 7 years of life in Milan, and maybe it will make you understand better if you are ready to go through it, or if you would prefer some other place to live in Italy. For my opinion, if you really have a hard time making money for any reason, everyone has its own problems, but if you really make a hard time making money, you always need to save money, you are always stressed about money, maybe Milan is not right place for you, because as I told, it will make you feel even worse. Maybe some other smaller cities in Italy will be less stressing, and they will also allow you to make a better lifestyle with the money that you manage to make, regarding the lifestyle that you can afford in Milan for the same amount. Because Milan is fun if you can really use the opportunities that it gives. I mean, if you can go out to make aperitivo with your friends, to, I don't know, buy something that you like, to go out to eat, sometimes to have a different kind of time. But if you always need to stay at home, maybe not in the best apartment, because the good one is really expensive, and you always need to save, and you always need to cook at home because you can't afford to go out, maybe this city loses its sense for you. In general, Milan is a very elegant, very stylish city that offers many great events, like for example, I really love the Design Week. You can really see all the best of the fashion and design world in the city. It is also very well connected. I mean, you have the trains to different directions from Milan. You have flights to any point of the world from this city. This city is connected really well. And also, for example, if you want to go to some place for the weekend, it's really easy here, because you can reach, I don't know, mountains by car or by train. You can go to the sea by car or by train. You can fly to any point in the world with a direct flight, and so on. So Milan for sure has its own advantages. And of course, this is the only city in Italy that can give you the opportunity to grow in your career. So if you are very ambitious, like to go out, like to grow, and so on, this place is for you. But if all the points that I mentioned before really stress you in this city, maybe you should consider some other places. If you liked this video, press the like button and follow my channel. You can also check my online store that makes shipping worldwide, where I offer my collection dedicated to Italian lifestyle. For example, this hoodie is one of the items from my collection. I will leave all the links below. Thank you for watching, and see you very soon. Ciao!